Christmas is a time of year that holds some of our dearest memories. We're introduced as kids to this season that brings our loved ones together and is filled with celebration. We sang songs, set up nativities, decorated houses. We learned Christmas is actually a real story with shepherds, wise men, Joseph and Mary. The story of when God the Father gave his son. I want to show my kids the real story of Christmas this Advent season. And honestly, I don't know what this will mean for our family. I hope it changes the way we spend money, who we bless, the type of gifts we give, and just how we talk and think about Jesus. The story of Christmas isn't told with free 2-day shipping or Black Friday deals. The story of Christmas changed the world. So, shouldn't it change us?
Good morning. We'll get lights eventually. Or maybe not. That'd be kind of fun. There we go. There it is. All right. Good morning. Welcome to Ripon Community Church. My name is Sam. I'm one of the pastors here. Thrilled to have you here with us as we're in our series right now called Advent Conspiracy. And really what Advent Conspiracy is this stripping away of all the things that's kind of like fluff, right? The fluffy stuff of Christmas that you kind of throw in there because you feel like you're supposed to. And so what we're trying to do with this series is bring it back to the hearty stuff, the things that really matter about Christmas, and really focus in on those things as we celebrate this season of Advent and of Christmas. And it's been awesome so far. This week we're actually going to ask ourselves this question, the question of is it possible this Christmas to spend less and at the very same time mean more? Is it possible this Christmas to spend less and mean more? And now, I know that's something that maybe is tough to think about because we have all kinds of things that happen at Christmas and all kinds of Christmas parties or all kinds of people that we think like, oh, I probably should get them a gift or not. And so we're thinking about this stuff constantly. And so we're really going to ask this question, is it possible to spend less and mean more? And what would that mean for the way we celebrate Christmas? Before we dive into that, though, would you take a moment and pray with me? Dear God, we are so grateful that we can be here this morning and worship you. As we're at this season of Advent and of Christmas, we're reminded that you're the best gift giver that there ever was, ever will be. You know how to give good gifts. And so as we talk about the giving of gifts this morning, God, I ask that you would help us to know what that really looks like, to give good gifts and have it be meaningful. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So I was thinking about this week, and I was looking at a chart, and I saw this particular chart. Maybe you'll recognize this chart. You can take a look at it here. It's got lots of numbers on them. I'm sorry for you who just couldn't stand math, just going back there for like a minute here. But here's this chart, and if you look at it, there are a few things about it. Like it's the power chart, right? Like scales of multiplication of things, where you say like 1 times 10 to the first power, that's 10. 1 times 10 to the second power is 100. And the number that's up there in the corner of each of those first numbers on the left side there corresponds to the number of zeros on the right and the next one over. So if there's 2 at the top of that 10, it's 100. If it's 4, it's 10,000. If it's 6, it's 1,000,000. If it's 8, it's 100 million, 9, a billion. Well, I was looking at this chart, and you get all the way to the bottom of that chart, and there's this number, 1 times 10 to the 12th power. And that equals a crazy number. It's really big. There are 12 zeros. Look at it because it's never going to be in your bank account, okay? It's a really big number. And so there it is. And we have that big number. And what's crazy about the number that I saw this week is you added one more thing to that number, and it's this. You can take a look. A dollar sign, all right? And I don't know if you know this, but that is a $1 trillion thing. That's $1 trillion. That's how much we spend on Christmas. Isn't that crazy? I was asking people, the staff, like all the office people this week, like, hey, what do you think we spend on Christmas? What's like the grand total, like food and travel and gifts? When you put it all together, what does that look like? And it's $1 trillion. They all thought it was like 100 million or something like that. And it's like 8 more zeros or something crazy like that. It's wild. That's so many zeros. That's a lot of zeros behind that one. Now, to put that into just a little bit of perspective, you have to know that to make it so that every single person on the planet Earth would have clean drinking water, that would cost $10 billion. That's 1/100th of what we spend on Christmas. 1/100th. It's nuts. And I don't say that to make you feel guilty. That's just the reality of what it is. But it's hard to wrap your mind around how that's possible. It puts the whole thing into perspective. It shows just how much Christmas has become synonymous with gift giving. They're like the same thing. Christmas equals gift giving and gift getting. It feels like that. That's basically just what it seems like. So much so that if I were to say to you right now, I'm like, hey, we're just sitting over coffee and we're just talking, and I were to say, hey, you should spend less this Christmas, I think most of you would have a particular feeling you'd get in your gut. And that feeling is feeling like you're a Scrooge, right? Like, oh, I can't give less. I want to give more. I can't give less this Christmas. I can't spend less money on the gifts I'm going to give. How can I not give more? It just doesn't feel right. It sits funny with us because for so many of us, we feel like we're supposed to give. And it's an awesome thing. It's a great thing. But it's so interesting how that feels that way. Gift giving isn't a bad thing. It actually comes right from the Christmas story, but we're always feeling like we can't quite give enough. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute, but first I want to talk about why it is that we actually give gifts on Christmas. I know there's all these other holidays out there that we don't do that for as much, like Easter, right? Like you're not giving and getting gifts like crazy to the degree that we are at Christmas on Easter. It's a whole different deal. It's a different sort of thing. So why is it that on Christmas we give gifts like we do? And it actually goes all the way back to the story of Jesus' birth. So Jesus, he's born, and it's not right after. Like when you see the nativity scene or the manger, you often see the shepherds and the wise men. You probably should actually put the wise men like 100 miles away, like somewhere else, or maybe across the house, because they're trying to get there at that point. They're not there yet, because they weren't there yet. It actually took them a couple months, or maybe even a couple years before they were actually there to meet Jesus. And we get that from some context clues in the text. But they weren't there yet. But while Jesus was born, these wise men were headed to meet Jesus. And often we think there's 3 wise men. It's not actually stated in the text how many there are. It's a likelihood that there's a lot of them, a number of people, that it's way more than 3. And it's also likely that they weren't kings either. Most of us here, like, we 3 kings. Yeah, you can sing it along with me. Many of you could. But like, there's those kings, right? There's a reason I don't sing during the band. But they weren't kings either. For them, they were probably these Persian scholars. They were these people that had their noses in books. They're reading and researching and seeing these prophecies and putting them all together and then spending the nights looking up at the sky, studying the stars. And so as they're doing this, and they're putting all the pieces together to understand what's going on in the world, they see a star rise. And they believe it means something important. So they saddle everything up, and they head out of town to follow where this star is going to lead. They catch this idea that star represents something big, that a king is to be born, the king of the Jews. And they follow this star all the way to Jerusalem. And so they get to Jerusalem, and they're thinking, okay, where in Jerusalem would the king of the Jews be born? So they think, first guess, it's got to be the palace. So they go to the palace, and they ask about this, and it kind of causes a bit of an uproar, but they go there and try to figure out what's happening, and they meet this man named King Herod. And we're going to read about what happens in this section next. Check it out. This is what happens. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law and asked, "Where's the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem in Judea," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah. For a ruler will come from you who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him too." Let me know so I can go and worship him too. Doesn't that sound just a smidge suspicious, right? Like first you're deeply disturbed, and now you want to worship too. There's a little bit of suspicion there, I think. It's like the person who says to you, "Hey, let me know where your candy bars are in your office so I can make sure nobody else gets them." Pastor Mike, that definitely doesn't happen here. So this happens, right? King Herod asks them for this little deal, and they like, okay, we're going to head out and find this place, Bethlehem, and we're going to go and find this king. So that's what they do. They go and they look for this king. And they make their way to Bethlehem, and take a look at what it says next. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy, and it rests over this house. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. That's it. That's where the gift giving comes from. But before we get into the gift giving, isn't that an amazing picture? I mean, just the most stunning thing. Here these guys are, these Persian scholars, these magi as they're referred to, and they've been traveling. We don't know how long, weeks, months, long enough. They've been searching for where this star is leading them, and they get to this place, and they see that it's resting over this house. And they are filled with joy, like so much joy. They've been traveling long enough. They are ready to be done traveling. They're thrilled that they finally reached their destination. So they're filled with joy, and they go into the house. And they walk into this house. And as they walk into this house, they see this baby or young child in the arms of his mother. And they're filled with such wonder and awe, and they're struck by it that they bow down and they begin to worship this son. And then they're so overwhelmed by this situation that they run back out to where all their stuff is, and they grab their treasure chest and they bring it in and they open it up and they give him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. It's this wild thing. Isn't that the most amazing picture? They're face to face with the King of Kings, and there he sits, this helpless baby, and they're so overcome by wonder that they can't help but give gifts. How could you not? How could you not? Giving can be such a natural thing, especially when you're in a situation or in the presence of something that takes your breath away. You can't help but give. In other words, just in case you're wondering this morning, gifts are not bad. Gifts can be awesome. Gifts can be amazing. And in this case, they're the natural reaction to the wonder of Jesus. Gifts, they can do the most spectacular things. Gifts can show someone value, right? You can give someone a gift, like if you're giving a gift to your wife and you give her earrings, it could be a very valuable thing. And it could be a gift of value. You mean this much to me. Now, that doesn't count when you're in trouble and you do that. That's a different thing. But when you show them that you value them, it's this awesome, beautiful thing. You can give the gift of freedom, like give a kid a bike, and they're like, thank you, I'm free. You don't have to drive me places anymore. I can go to the park, I can go to my friend's house. I am free. This is amazing. It's awesome. It can be the gift of imagination, right? You get a whole art set to a kid who loves to draw or to paint, and they are filled with this excitement. What am I going to create with this? Their mind goes wild, and they start to think about the pictures they can draw, the creations they can make. Or the gift of knowledge, you give someone a book that's a helpful book, and it can change their life. It's a whole different world for them if they read a particular book and see things from a different perspective or learn things that help them. A gift can help someone feel known. You give them an introvert shirt, right? Go away, I'm an introvert. If you're an introvert, you love that shirt. And if you know an introvert, you love that shirt. Like, because you're saying, go in your room for a little while because you're getting cranky and you need to go away for a little bit. So if you know an introvert, yes? Okay, some of you do. Okay, good. You get it. It can help them feel valued. Know how you feel. You can give them flowers. The best gifts, the most pure gifts come out of a reaction. There's this reaction, an appreciation for the gift that person is in your life. That's what happened with these wise magi, these wise men. They wondered at the gift of this Savior that was right there in front of them, and they just couldn't help themselves. They had to give them gifts. That's not the end of the story. Actually, a few more layers that we're going to get into here. You see, whenever there's something pure and good and right, something that you just love and you can tell that there's a goodness in it, whenever that's the case, something that's that pure, people always find a way to ruin it, always find a way to spoil it, to get in on it. For example, Coca-Cola, right? Like, who doesn't love a wonderful, tasty, ice-cold Coca-Cola in the middle of the summer, right? You're sitting on a hot day. Wouldn't that be great? You're sitting there, you're sipping your Coca-Cola. It's wonderful. It's tasty. And then they went and ruined it and made Diet Coke, okay? That stuff is terrible. I don't know. If you drink it, there's some weird tasting stuff in there. I'm just telling you, it's in there, and you're addicted to it, so it's your problem. It's probably also in Coca-Cola, too. But I'm just saying, they ruined Coca-Cola with Diet Coke, I think. Or how about every sequel ever made, right? You get a movie, and it's okay, or it's good, and they're like, oh, yes, let's make some more money off of this. Let's make like 3 more of them. And they're never as good as the first, right? The first is great, the second one's okay, and the 7th one is just horrible. I mean, seriously, you gotta get over the plot. Or maybe this morning you woke up and you drank some really good coffee, right? It was really tasty or really great. Or maybe you woke up and you did this horrible thing, made instant coffee. Like, they ruined it. They took all the goodness out of it, all the sweetness of it. It's too fast. It doesn't taste as good. And I don't know. Anyways, they ruined it for me. Last one is this, Oreos. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's this rumor going around that Oreos changed the recipe. I don't know if you know that, but supposedly like they took it from one place, a plant from one place, and put it somewhere else, and then changed the recipe because of that, and so they no longer taste the same. So now they're no longer called Oreos; they're called Sorios. Last night I said that, and nobody laughed. And I only got one service to laugh this morning. And Mike said this week when we were talking about this, I was like, what's one thing that they've ruined or spoiled? And he said, Oreos, tell this, and everybody will think it's so funny. And I was supposed to say if no one of you laughed, it was his fault. So it's his fault. You can give him a hard time. Okay. Go buy him some Sorios. Actually, you should go do that. Buy him some Sorios and say, I'm sorry, nobody laughed. Anyways, remember how suspicious Herod sounded? Right? He was suspicious. He was saying, this is scary. I'm not sure what this is, but then come let me worship. That's for a reason. There's a reason. He wanted to do the exact same thing. He saw something good, and he wanted in on it. He wanted it for himself. So much so that he was dangerous. Very dangerous. So God made sure that the danger didn't catch up to the people that he was caring for in this instance. It says this in Matthew 2:12. It says, when it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. And then it says again, it says, after the wise men were gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, flee to Egypt with the child and his mother, the angel said. Stay there until I tell you to return, because Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. That night, Joseph left for Egypt with the child and Mary, his mother. Now, I know we talk about Mary a lot at Christmas time, and it's awesome, and she deserves it. It's a well-deserved thing to talk about Mary's faith. It's incredible. But I love those verses about Joseph. I mean, here he is trying to take care of this family, this son that's not quite his, is God's, and this wife of his, and in this wild circumstance, and they're in some other place, and he hears from God, get up and go somewhere else because it's not safe for you here. And he doesn't wait a day or a week. He goes that night. Like, he gets everybody, he says, hey, Mary, get packed up, get everything on the camel, let's head out of town. That's awesome. Like, that's a real amazing man, like caring for his family. I think that's really cool. I think Joseph doesn't get enough credit, but that's for you dads. You guys got to know that that's some good example. Like, take care of your family like that. I think that's great. But they were right to cut out of town. They were right to leave. Herod was not a nice person. Herod was wealthy. He had massive area that he ruled. He had palaces that were bigger than Caesar's. Like Caesar was his king. And like he ruled over different regions. And so Herod has his own particular region. He has this big area, but he has bigger palaces than Caesar does. So he's got all this stuff, but he's also a tyrant. Throughout his rule, he had 3 of his own sons, his favorite wife, he had 10, one of his mother-in-laws, a high priest, several uncles, and a couple of cousins. He had every last one of them gotten rid of, like gone, because he was afraid, because he was suspicious of something. Herod had everything, but it was never enough. It was never quite enough. So when we read the following verses, it comes as no surprise. It says this. It says, Herod was furious when he realized that the wise men had outwitted him. He sent soldiers to kill all the boys in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under, based on the wise men's report of the star's first appearance. That's not a fun part of the Christmas story. That's appalling. And whenever I'm reminded of this, it changes the Christmas story for me. It reminds me, and it shows just how provocative Jesus coming to earth was. This was dangerous, and it was a high-stakes mission. And from the moment of his birth, the powerful people around Jesus, they wanted what he had. They were trying to get in on it. He was envied by them for his entire life, from the moment he was born. This person, this king that claimed he wanted to get in on the worship, he was really just getting in on it for himself. He wanted to protect his own throne, his own crown. He wanted the praise. He wanted the worship. He was jealous and wanted to get on whatever this thing was with Jesus. He wasn't going to let some child or baby steal something that he thought was his. He wanted to get in on it for all the wrong reasons. There's a difference. There's a difference between getting in on Christmas and responding to Christmas. Those are 2 different things. Herod, he wanted to get in on this king to be born. He wanted to get in on it so he could keep his power. Compare that to the wise men. When the wise men gave gifts, it says they went into the house, they bowed down and worshiped, and then they went and got their treasure chests and gave him these gifts. It was a response. It was in response. There was no desire to take, only a desire to appreciate this amazing gift they'd been given. There was reverence. There was respect. The gifts were a response to the wonder of being in God's presence. They were beside themselves. They were moved by the experience. They pulled out these treasures to show just how much they appreciated the opportunity to be in there, in that place at that time. Gifts can be these amazing things. Gifts can be these spectacular things. Spending copious amounts of money to keep up with the gifts that you're supposed to give, or the gifts you're supposed to get for people. I think that just misses the point. I mean, you can do it. It's totally fine. It might even improve the economy, right? Like it's maybe good for the economy to go out and spend a lot of money at Christmas, which is fine. This is what it is. But I don't think by doing so, your Christmas or your life will actually improve. I don't think it'll be better. Remember that number? The 1 times 10 to the 12th, the $1 trillion? I wonder how many of those gifts bought with that money are given because you've been told your Christmas won't be complete without it. It was a commercial, it was an advertisement, it was what everybody was talking about, what your kids were all talking about it. Don't you think that the people that were talking about it or those advertisements, don't you think that they were really just saying, hey, can you show me where your Christmas is? So I can come and worship too, and so I can come be part of it too, and I can benefit from it, and I can make a buck or two off of it, so I can get in on it. I don't blame them at all. Like, it's smart. They're very smart people making that happen. I get it. It's a great way to make a buck or two. But that doesn't mean you have to buy in on it. It doesn't mean you have to do it too. I'm going to tell you something in the next minute here that I think is probably the best gift I can possibly give you during this season. It's something that you're probably stressing over and frustrated about or trying to figure out, and I want to give you the really good gift here. So if you've been kind of daydreaming or getting tired because it's noontime or whatever and you need to get to your lunch, and you take a moment, muster up some focus and listen to these next 2 minutes, and then you can daydream the rest of the time, and it's totally fine. All right, you ready? You with me? Okay, here it is. You have permission from God, who invented Christmas, to spend less. And then here's the most important part, right? You have permission from God, who invented Christmas, to spend less and not feel guilty about it. And not feel guilty about it. You can spend less this Christmas and not feel guilty about it. Because I know that's a thing. I know you've got the people that you feel like you're supposed to spend some things on. I know you feel like there's those people that are really important to you and you just want to get them the right thing and you can't figure it out. So like they have everything already. What can I get them? And so you try to muster up the funds to make it happen. And so you have this guilt complex like, oh, I can't get the right things. I feel really bad. You can do that. And here's how you can do that. What if this Christmas season you gave gifts like the wise men did? You gave gold, right? That would work. No, it wouldn't work. And what if you gave gifts that were a response? Gifts with meaning, gifts in response to the wonder of God. What if you spent less and you meant more this season? What if you started by stepping out of the whole competition thing where you see pictures of other people's Christmases and they have all these presents under the tree and you worry that yours isn't that good? What if you just didn't worry about that and you thought, this is what ours is going to be and it's going to be great? What if you stepped out of the comparison thing where you hear from other people what they're doing and what they're wanting and all the things that they're going to the store to get and how many times they've gone shopping and how stressful it is and you feel like I'm supposed to do that too, I guess. What if you stepped out of the comparison thing and you got rid of all those expectations that are there, but they really shouldn't be there because there's no need for them to be there, and you chose to have just the most amazing Christmas? What if you plan to spend less, but also plan to mean so much more? What would that look like for you in your life this Christmas? What would that look like? I think it could start with this question. Instead of asking, how much can I get or give, ask, what will show them the kind of gift they are to me? What will show them what kind of gift that they are to me? It could be time. It could be a handwritten note. It could be some unique thing that surprises them and they think it's so neat. Or it could be even that one thing that they just really, really want. And it could even cost a decent amount of money. I mean, this is not about the money in the end. This is about giving gifts that have meaning and a response to the gifts that they are and the gifts that Jesus is for us. Don't feel guilty about the money thing. Feel like you can give better gifts because they're more meaningful and not feel like you have to spend money on it or as much on it. Give gifts like the wise men did out of this response to the gift that person is in your life. And by the way, just in case you're wondering, that person is a gift. Whether you treat them that way or not, or they treat you that way or not, they are a gift. And as you treat them that way, it does amazing things. Why not cut the fluff? Why not cut out the meaningless spending? Because we all know there's so much of it. You get to the end of the year, right? You're just before that Christmas, like, oh, I forgot a gift for them. And you sprint out and you just grab like Tic Tacs and gum or something. And you're trying to like get the gift. In the end, we can do better than that. We can give gifts of meaning to show them how much we appreciate them in honor of the amazing gift that Jesus is. Why not cut the fluff, the meaningless spending, get back to why we give gifts at Christmas in the first place? as this response to the most powerful and absurdly amazing gift, this gift of Jesus. Doesn't it sound like a better Christmas? Like a Christmas you want to be at? Not one spent with like worry if they're going to like it or not, worry if you did enough or not, worry if you made it through in the best way possible or not, but just like enjoyment, time with people, celebrating this amazing gift we've all gotten. That just sounds good. Like, I know we have all kinds of ideas of what we're supposed to do, but what about like what you really think celebrates it? What about the things that you feel like you could leave that day or that few hours that you spend with those people and you're like, man, I'm so glad I was there. Not like, oh, thank God I left that place. Like, I'm so glad I was here. What would that look like? Think about it. What would it take to so enjoy those times for yourself and celebrate this amazing gift we've been given? If you want to do it different this year, if you want to adjust it a little bit this year, I'm going to say a prayer, and I'm going to ask that God would help us to know how to give gifts in a way that's meaningful and purposeful and celebrates Him more than anything else. And if you'd like that for yourself, I'll ask you to bow your heads and pray those words along with me. Would you pray with me? Dear God, again, we're reminded so much of the amazing gift giver that you are and the fact that you gave your Son. We ask that in response to that, not to get in on it, but to enjoy it and celebrate it and have this response, that we would have the ability to give meaningful gifts this summer, or this year, this Christmas. That we could give gifts that have meaning, not gifts that feel like they're forced or like we just do it because everyone else is doing it. Father, help us to find meaning this Christmas in celebrating your Son and celebrating all the gifts that you've given to us. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.